Hi, David. So glad we're giving this a go for an audience. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. If you could just spend a minute or so sharing a little something about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for doing this. This is great. And so, just a little bit about myself. My name is David, and I've done quite a few things, throughout my life here. And I think the most basic, best way to introduce myself, that could benefit and help this entire process is I am a person just like everybody else, right? I'm a person that was born into this world, that has gone through this entire, whatever you want to call it, brainwashing system. And, at some point, was able to pull myself out of it, which is, I think the bigger message that we're going for. So, I'm just like everybody, and there's really no big difference between me and anyone else. I think the bigger, underlying picture is that I was able to, stop where I was inside of this entire illusion and put the work in. And it really comes down to that, putting the work in to pull myself out. So that's sort of the simple thing, aside from, I play music here and there, and you know, I teach a lot. So
Great. Yeah, yeah. The deconditioning is a lot of work, and it is great when I come across people who've also done some hardcore deconditioning. I think we're going to cover quite a few subjects. I mean, knowing us for sure. I want to start with, I mean, let's call it flat Earth. We both don't like the term, and how it's the foundation and not the ceiling of one's path, and that the ball earth's like a spell. It's like an actual magic spell. What would you say on those sort of topics?
yeah, yeah, that's it's really good, and this idea of words and language and spelling. The word spelling, is rooted in the word spell. So the idea of specific words meaning specific things and using those words correctly, and just kind of moving them around and changing them so that they're more clearer and more importantly more aligned with truth, because I think that's the big power in this whole um, whatever you want to call it, illusion matrix that we're in, is truth, right? Truth coming in absolutely dissolves everything. So, um, that's sort of been my little kind of go-to, is how much is this aligned? How much are my words aligned with truth?
Sure, sure. And with this sort of spell, this ball earth spell, people are like super conditioned by it. I mean, one very short story, I was with two astrophysics Swiss guys recently, and we had a 3 hour debate. It got very loud and raucous,
Hmm.
and they were just writing equations down on paper, and they just resorted to ridicule. It's absolutely crazy. And what I
Right.
what I did, I didn't even use the words flat Earth because you and I both know the stigma attached. And then I was talking about the word cosmology, cosmological model, and they turned around and said, "Oh, you're one of those flat earthers." It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mm,
So here's my take on that. So the idea of where we are is sort of the big goal here, right? And trying to really explain where we are. And let's just look at the words flat earth, right? So the place that we are, this realm that we are, the earth, right, which is rooted in the word land, actually isn't flat, right? So there are huge cavernous, like, oceans that go down,
yeah,
many, many miles,
mountains, yeah.
and the mountains go, so this plane that we're on actually isn't flat. The water is level, right? The water is
Yeah, it's
level. The
also not
earth,
flat, it's waves.
right, and there's waves, exactly. So my belief of those two words. I believe there was a program inserted within the system maybe 10 plus years ago, because the ones that created this entire spell knew that this was coming. So when you have those two words, flat earth, it's the easiest and quickest way to explain sort of what people are going through, and and noticing and learning about where we actually are, but it doesn't actually match up with the reality
Sure.
of where we are, because we're actually inside. We're in a terra. We're in a
A realm.
um, yeah, a realm. We're inside of a terrarium, right? So it's not that we're on Earth, we're in a terrarium, right? And it's interesting because it's the opposite. Like what the program is, the conditioning and the spell is literally the opposite of what it actually is, right? And so using those words, it's you got to be really careful about using words, because I think what happened is the insert that was put in into the program surrounding the words flat Earth. There's some spell involved where you notice when people hear that
They
are
shut off.
in the spell. Well, not only do they shut off, but there's all of these sort of reactions that come
Anger.
out of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the anger, the downplaying, the condescending, the shaming, all of
Sure.
the stuff is within the program, right?
I believe this is highly possible. This is a ritual that's been done. They've put a lot of magic into the Ball Earth model, and they've also put a lot of magic into the flat Earth community, shall we say?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. What I would say is it's not really about flat or sphere. It's really about where we are, and it's not only about that. It's about how this reality actually works, and more so, or as much as, how the sky clockwork works. But we'll get onto that a bit later.
Right.
What I would say is, without these people who are on the ball, without this sort of flat Earth, let's just use those words for ease of use, ease of understanding for the audience. People are really at a really big disadvantage because without knowing you live in a divine realm, it's really going to hinder you. So, like, if I'm chatting to some ball guy, I'm having a debate. Halfway through, they'll say something like, "Oh, so you believe in God, or so you're religious then?" And I'll say something like, "No, but we do live in a magical divine realm." And they freak out. It just stuns them. It's like a stun gun. They just get
hmm
frozen. They
hmm
don't know how to deal with that sentence.
One thing that I would hope for and wish for, and this is something that sort of has been coming up into my consciousness lately, is that anyone who is broken out of the spell, right? And so I don't want to use the term flat earther, but anyone who's broken out of the spell and started to pull the spell out of their conscious mind, we have to realize that a majority of the people are living within that spell,
Sure.
right? And so what I see a lot of times is, the ones that are in the spell, that believe in this whole, astrological, universe thing. The program of the condescending behavior that we were talking about is embedded within there. So I think for people that have pulled themselves out, there really needs to be a sense of compassion involved, and understanding and knowing that they're inside of something that they are not necessarily A, aware of, and B, can't necessarily control it, right? So they have to put in that work of getting to that spot of, going through the cognitive dissonance, right? That idea that, I'm believing two things, because we all went through that, right? I went through that myself, where you
Sure.
pulling yourself out, and then you have that inner turmoil with
Yeah.
yourself. It's basically yourself and your mind
Yeah.
fighting itself.
Yeah.
And so, but if they haven't gone through that, I think us that have pulled ourselves out really need to look at the idea that they're in it, and to have some compassion for it, and not play into this whole idea of bashing each other, right? And because you see that a lot online,
Sure. It's
it's
crazy.
like the idea of the globetard and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's funny on some level, but they are in a spell.
Yeah, I was having it out with these astrophysicists it was in a beer garden in Bern, Switzerland, and they were analytically smart, but it got a bit rowdy a few times, and luckily there was quite a bit of female energy there to calm things down,
Hmm.
because one of them got quite insulty and like, I'm not the sort of guy who's going to take that for too much, too long, and it just got a bit crazy and out of hand. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I mean, I think you know, we are all evolving right now, right? There's a big evolution happening. So, when we have conversations like this, like we're having, it's sort of sharing, where we are. on an analytical and sort of cognitive level, right? So we're sharing with our words, they're coming out into the world through the computer systems and into each other. Not only is that happening, but the idea of us being a hive is happening as well.
Sure.
So when we align ourselves with truth and we start evolving, it starts to spread throughout,
Yeah.
right? So,
What I would say with this sort of, I'm going to use the words flat Earth just for ease of listening for the
yeah,
listeners, is that I get to visit, and a lot of people visit me. A lot of these, people awake to these lies, cosmological lies, flat Earth, and nearly everyone is a creative person. Nearly everyone is into
mm,
whether they're into dance or into music or in
right.
nearly everyone's creative. And I believe a lot of these people deep in the matrix, they can't even put their mind into the flat Earth model to even contemplate it. They can't even do the mental gymnastics.
Right. Well, here's my opinion on that is that when you're born, you're fully functioning, right? And then so mostly everybody has gone through the brainwashing system at a very early age. And at first, say you're five, I call the school system the brainwashing system. So once you're five, you go into it and it's slowly suppressing that to the point where it's basically like a massive hand coming
Sure.
down into the child saying, quiet, don't think, don't do anything creative, and we're just going to fill your mind with logic and fill your mind with brainwashing and fill your mind with
Yeah.
spells. And there's a point where the children give up, is really what it
Sure.
is. They give up and they say, oh, I'm just going to fall back.
Yeah.
And then they become sort of a passenger
Sure.
in their
They
life
they go
experience,
home
right?
and the parents put toxic food on the table and they sort of threaten
Yeah.
them and say, "You better eat that." And the
Oh
child's
gosh,
sitting there going, "I
yes.
love you guys," and you're getting. I know my body's telling me this food is terrible. I'm not even hungry, and you're forcing me to eat this complete shit. It's just pure trauma for children. Pure trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because the trauma thing could really be an entire, other segment, but the idea of those traumatic experiences is where the most amount of whatever you call the spell, can enter. And there are hundreds of different spells going on, right?
Sure.
Maybe even
Thousands.
thousands in this place,
Thousands.
but those traumatic scenarios is where the spells have the easier access into the being and into the conscious
Yeah,
mind.
I don't want to step away from cosmology too much at this juncture, but
Yep.
these parents, they actually give their children away to mind control camps. They call them schools, but the
Yeah.
parents even buy them the uniforms from their own money, and
Yeah.
even buy cars and gasoline to drop them off there and pick them up. I mean, you really could, when you step back and think about it, you really couldn't make this shit up.
I mean, it's on some level, I can see that it's a handed down spell though, because those parents are within the spell, and then their parents,
Sure.
all the way down the line. And so I think, it's just unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, but right now, in this moment, in this time, is the time to really do, put in the work to pull us
Yeah.
out. It's time to be
Yeah,
pulled out.
because as we'll get to later, there might not be as much time as what people think. Just want to go back to
Right.
the divine magic realm. When you talk to these people in the Matrix, whatever labels we want to use, they sort of go,
Mhm.
"Ugh, you're religious," and you say, "No, but I believe this is a divine realm," and they really freak out and they get stunned. And you can say things like, "Well, look at how water turns into a snowflake." I mean, if you watch that in slow motion, that's not random. That's some really divine high consciousness code. Or you look at
Right.
flowers with the golden phi, the Fibonacci sequence. And these sort of atheist scientism people who are under a big spell, they get stunned. They can't actually answer you. It just sort of freezes them.
Right. And the thing is that I mean, I really don't want to give excuses for humanity, but it really comes down to that for me in the way that I've experienced it, because when you're under that spell and you're completely deactivated, right? And so a lot of people, go down the path of, there is no God and there is no, divine creation here and there is no, magic, happening. And this whole entire place was built and created by something that is way, way beyond
Phew.
humanity's understanding, like our conscious mind. Like, there's no way we're ever going to get close, really, to the magnitude of what we're in, because our minds and brains and consciousness can only go so far, right? And so, but with that being said, at the same time, we're linked to it. Right, we're linked to it, at a microscopic level, right? And so, becoming awakened and, a part of what this whole realm is part of the journey.
Sure.
And I think that it's in alignment for anyone at any given time that they choose, right? And so,
Yeah.
y-
I would say breaking the ball spell is I sort of said it at the start. It's the foundation of a human being's spiritual path, and not the ceiling. It's the
absolutely.
boat to get in, and not the destination. Because all over social
Well,
media, people are like, "I'm awake, I'm woke, the Earth's flat." No, this is the start. This is the very very start. This is when you can really get the
right,
wheels moving. And if you really integrate it and really live in a divine realm, I mean, magic comes alive like you wouldn't believe. You've got to really test it and take it to the gym every day. But it's not the destination. It's like square one. We should have been here when we were 2 years old, but it's taken us 30,
absolutely.
40, 50 years.
I think what if we want to say there are thousands of spells, right, in this place that we're in, casted by whoever's casting them, we can call them a lot of different names, but the ball earth idea is the largest, greatest, most powerful spell, I believe, that's happening
Yeah.
right now, right? And so, the idea and the concept of a lie, right? And so the lie is it's actually a massive weapon, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, people don't really get that, right? And I've been involved in, being lied to a lot, and especially when it comes down to this idea of where we are, we've all been lied about it. But it's huge, right? It's a huge weapon that's being used on humanity. And in my experience, right, you can go off on tangents in any kind of field, right? And so I did some sound stuff,
Hmm.
in the past, and there's a lot of people that are looking for this healing sort of thing, and in all these different types of avenues. But if you haven't broken the biggest spell that exists in this place, it's gonna have no
Sure,
power at
sure.
all. You have to be able to break that
Like,
spell,
yeah,
right?
there are
And
people going to see
so,
these gurus around the world. A lot of them are talking about galaxies and black holes and
yep,
space. These
yep,
conscious festivals, I mean, they're all over America and Europe. They're full of globe symbolism, galaxy
yep,
symbolism. The spell
yep.
is everywhere.
Right. And so I think that there is definitely a quote unquote intelligence behind the spell, because they are, in a way, steering these things where they're saying, oh, okay, well, we'll go and allow this to happen. We'll allow these, like, spiritual sort of
Yeah,
things to happen, as long as they're not connected to breaking the biggest spell that
sure.
exists, which is the
Yeah.
globe, right? And so, so that's what I see happening. And once you break that spell, you start to become activated lightning
Yeah,
speed.
it's really quick. I've had a lot of people come to see me over the years. I've had people come to see me with Kundalini awakenings from this awakening, from breaking this spell. I've known people who have left their husbands or wives in a flash, completely changed their lives. I've known people who are on drink and drugs, who've automatically just healthy, bringing divinity into their life. I've seen some
Yeah.
massive transformations due to breaking this spell, more than breaking any of the other spells put together.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, some people are probably thinking, well, why? What does it do? And where does it lead? And to me, really what it is, it comes back to this idea of truth, right? When you have truth start to flow through your body and flow through your consciousness, it literally starts, like, activating you
Sure, sure.
automatically, right? And it starts to, I call them barnacles, right? And so when you kind of travel through, and when a boat travels through the ocean, they get these barnacles attached. And once the truth starts pouring through you, it's just knocking all these barnacles off left
Sure.
and right. And then it starts spewing out of your mouth, right? As if it's like
Yep.
clearing the path of the world
Sure.
of lies. It's
And this goes
amazing.
back to Tibetan high tantra called Kala Chakra. and it isn't to do with the chakras. It's called Kala Chakra, ancient Tibetan tantric method to do with a flat cosmology. And what you do, you bring the cosmology inside, and then it pours out of you, and you evolve and
Mm,
transform through it. So what we're all doing, us YouTube conspiracy guys, or whatever you want to call us lot,
mhm,
we're actually doing a high form of ancient tantra because we're breaking out of a
mm,
false cosmology from the
mhm.
inside.
Right. Yeah. And we're witnessing the power of this. I mean, I could see it, in my own life. And there are people that are really either choosing the path to not want to awake and not want to wake up, or they're just really stubborn, or they're so deep inside that it's going to take a little bit extra cracking. But I really see it like popcorn,
Yes, like
right?
popcorn.
And so it just starts popping,
Yeah,
boom, boom,
I know
boom,
people who are actually
boom.
going through the wake up. I mean, they hang out with me, and I see in their eyes they're going through it. But when they go back to their family and their job and their friends, they're not ready to come out yet. I know quite a few people like this. They haven't fully come out the closet because that is going to be a
Hmm.
big. There's no way back. They either do it or they don't do it.
Yeah, I've definitely lost some friends. It's been, one of those things, but, once you become activated and the truth starts coming through you and flowing through you, the idea of sorrow and loss just goes
Yeah, sure.
away. I just don't experience those types of those feelings, right? And so, I wish everybody the best in their journey.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure. I mean,
Uh, but,
this is like
it is what
when
it
we get
is.
onto the next subject about automatons, non-player characters in the Matrix. I'm getting to a
Hmm.
point now, and I'm pretty much a compassionate guy. If a lot of these people in these villages who are just they're not really here, if they all perish, I'm not going to take on the pain, David. I'm just not going to take it on, and it's not through
Right.
denial. I'm just not going to feel the pain, and I don't know what that means, but there's a lot of humans here, and they're not real. They're not really here.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I've gone through that before, this whole idea of loss and sorrow, and I've felt it, and it was real, and it was almost as if it was a nightmare on some level, and then so going back to the idea of truth, I could feel it in my being that I will exist forever. I could feel it
Sure,
in my
sure.
being, right? And so, this is not to cut ahead, but I think this is really part of, or maybe the big reason why there's, about to be a reset. I think the reset is absolutely
Yeah,
important, because there are people that have really come to the dead end, is what it is. It's a
yep. The
dead end.
souls are just getting
This idea
smaller
of,
and more shrunk, and they're just programmed
yep, yep,
beings. More than a frog, more than an ant. They're actually highly intelligent beings, but massively programmed. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I'll say just before we move on, I think we'll move on from cosmology now. The ball spell. I just want to say I've said it many times before, but I just can't say it enough. We're all in trauma because we don't know exactly where we are. But conscious trauma is so much better than subconscious trauma.
Right. Well, because then you go from the passenger to the
Yeah.
driver, right? And so, and that's absolutely important. It's linked with creativity. It's linked with you taking the power of your own experience and start to
Yeah.
drive, right?
We were talking the other day, David, about two worlds splitting almost, where we were saying we walk down the
Right.
road and it's like these people can't see us and we can't really see them. It's like very, very strange. It's like there's two different energy fields.
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting thing that I'm noticing for sure. Just briefly on my end, I'm walking around in the world, and it's as if that I'm, bumping into, or people are bumping into me, really. Like I'll just be walking, and there's a lot of like, oh wait, you're there, you're an actual thing that's in my way, or it's kind of this interesting thing where I'm not necessarily flowing in the way that society is going, right? And I look at it as just this massive, like, programmed, um you know I was in the mall. Here's just a really quick example. I was in the mall. I went in the mall just really quickly to get one specific thing I needed, and the mall was the only place that had it. So I walk in, And it's just, I looked at this place in this way, because I used to go to the
Yeah,
malls, back in the day. And I'm looking in this place and I'm like, this place looks and acts and feels like a giant ant trap, right? It's an ant trap, and people are going in there and they're like collecting all these things, and they're like buying all these things, and they're smelling all these smells, right? And then they're leaving their ant trap, the big massive mall ant trap, right, with their stuff, and bringing it back, and now they have, less money, which is basically going to take them
yeah,
time to work to get that money back. It's just
yeah, sure.
crazy.
And there's different aspects to this sort of lockdown matrix. People use, they get funneled into the mall. One I've realized, I've been in Germany a bit recently, is in these towns and villages, these people have these houses, and it's like they've built their own prison. They're mowing the lawn, they're cutting the grass with scissors at the edges so no grass goes onto the concrete. Their garages are like super tidy. So these people just potter around the house and the garden, keeping everything super, super, super tidy. And if they don't, they'll really stand out and everyone will talk about them. And I've watched this and I'm like, this is massively ill. This is like worse than a concentration camp. This is an illness, massive illness. And there should be
Right.
people here healing them, talking to them. It's unbelievable.
It's I think on some level it's scary,
Oof.
right? And going back to the food idea, right? And so just really quickly, I mean, there's so many foods that have the poisons that are there to sort of
Dumb them down. Yeah.
subdue the mind, dumb down that mind so that it operates at a level that it actually can't start putting things
Yeah.
together, and then so there's a grocery store by my house, right? And there's probably five things in the entire grocery store that I believe are edible, right? And you go in there and it's just like the entire place is full of
Yeah.
just junk. And then you look at the people that are in there that are buying these things, and their bodies
All
are
over the
just like,
place.
whoa, what's
Yeah.
happening? It's it's really like, it's really sad on some level. And it's like a trap. It's really like being caught
Yeah.
in this
Then
trap and not
when
knowing
their
how to
body
get
has
out.
like these strange inflammations, I mean, people say, "Oh, these people are fat," but let's get a bit more detailed here. It's people with very strange inflammations and growths, very abnormal and asymmetric. So then these people look in the mirror and have some subconscious self-loathing, and then run for the sugar again. And I don't know if many listeners have studied sugar. Sugar activates the brain very similar to cocaine. It's like super, super addictive. Very hard to come off sugar.
Right. Right. Yeah. And one thing that I think is really sad when you know that and you realize that is how many children are given sugar, right?
Yeah.
My son, he just doesn't get sugar. He's very aware, right? He knows about
Yep.
ingredients, and his mother and I both actually teach him about these things. So he'll be in any given grocery store with me, we immediately go to the back and see how much sugar is in here. He doesn't eat candy, right? He's not being integrated in any way into this, because in my opinion, that whole sugar thing, you know where
Yeah.
that leads, right? You know where that leads when you get older, and now sugar is boring, so what kind of
Sure,
drugs
sure,
can I
sure.
get,
It's an
right? and
up down
and
world
so
we're in.
absolutely, you got to stop it right there when they're at
Yeah,
that
and
young
with
age.
sugar, it's very much a candida food. So we all need candida in our gut, a little bit of it. But what sugar does, it multiplies candida, which is again creating what people call fat and growth. So people think fat people are
Right.
like, oh, they've eaten too much pizza, but generally it's candida overgrowth, which is sugar and
Right.
gluten and stuff like that. But also with these people
Yeah.
in the matrix, I mean, yeah, they've been they've been distracted by toxic purchasing. They've been distracted by this really crappy food. And we were talking the other day. They've been distracted by a whole host of things. We could be talking about salary, tax, politics, climate change.
Hmm.
All these
Hmm.
distractions. They're just getting hammered.
Hmm.
It's quite hard to break the spell because there's so many spells being fired at them.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And so I call these, like, pockets, like cesspools in a way. If the river's flowing smoothly, that's one thing. The river's making its way to the ocean. But if you get trapped, there's all these different traps
Yeah,
that you can get stuck in, right? And they're really, and I want to use in quotes, intelligently, right? Because it's not intelligent in the grand scheme of things, but they are intelligently designed that way, right? So you get stuck in these. The idea of politics, I mean, that idea is really basic. It's really simple. You take, you get as close as you can to 50-50, right? 50-50 meaning half of the people have this idea, the other half have this idea. That's going to equal the most amount
Yeah,
of conflict, right? The most amount of conflict. And so that's all
yeah.
it is. That's all it is. It's
Sure,
conflict
it's
engineering.
an I own ABC status. Everyone's running around trying to get the ABC status. I mean, in Germany, everyone's got to get the nice car and clean it. It's all about the car in Germany.
Yeah,
It's really strange. It's all about the car. In England, it's a lot more
right.
about the house and the clothes. I mean, in America, what's the main thing there to own? It's house again, isn't it?
Well, this whole idea of freedom, right? The quote unquote freedom and the house and the car and the quote unquote white picket fence
Yeah,
story, right? It's an absolutely trap that no one's ever going to get out of. I mean, it's engineered that way. Like, it's like, okay, well, come this way and then you will be free because you have all these, opportunities. And it's a total, like, it's a dialogue. Right? It's just it's not real. It's a story that has been believed, and so people are trapped and living their entire lives
totally.
believing that
But
trap,
then
and then they
people
die.
say to me, "Oh, but how do I get out?" It's easy. I mean, recently I didn't have much money. I just went off living in my car. It wasn't even my car. I don't know whose car it
Yeah.
was. And you just raise your vibration. I was living in the forests. I was living by the rivers and lakes in the Alps. I had an amazing time, and it didn't cost much money. You can do these things. I mean, what upsets me is there's so many grown men. I mean, there's grown women as well, but grown men are like, "Oh, Mark, I'm stuck." No, you're not. You're a grown man. Just walk the other way. It's that simple. It really is that
Mhm.
simple. And people just have these mental blocks of staying within these distractions and staying within this pain. And you don't need to.
Well, yeah, it's this idea of comfort, right? And then the fear of the elements, right? So it's like, oh, I'm afraid to be connected with nature, because I don't know, I need a roof, I need the
Yeah.
security, I need my insurance, I need all the stuff that keeps them locked. It's really locked in this state of quote unquote
Yeah.
comfort, right? And so, practicing, starting to get rid of these attachments
Yeah,
little by little,
I
right?
don't have
And
an
and
address. It's like, it's great. I don't get post.
yeah, and it's funny,
Yeah.
neither do
I'm not
I. And
interested.
and people trip
And
out on that. People trip out. Well, where do you live? You can't do this until you
yeah,
have an address. Blah 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 blah.
I
Blah.
got a trick
Come
for you
on.
and the listeners. Someone phoned me up from England, someone in the Matrix. Oh, Mark, you got to fill out a form. And I said, oh, I've got an anxiety disorder where I'm formophobic. I can't fill out forms. And they believed me. They said, oh, I'm very, because in today's like politically correct world, they were like, oh, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. Okay, we won't send you anything. Hey, just tell them you got an anxiety disorder and you can't fill out forms. You don't accept paperwork.
Yeah, done
Shall
deal,
I go
right?
back to a little bit
Um,
about kids and climate change? I was in Zurich recently, and I got some friends there, and I found out there are teenagers now going around Zurich at night, vandalizing and graffitiing cars, like big 4x4s, graffitiing them with things like "You don't care about the planet." So now you've got these kids coming out of mind control camps, having a go at their parents because they've been mind controlled with the climate lies. So they've sort of weaponized the kids
interesting.
against their own families.
Yeah, what does that mean? I haven't heard that, but I think the bigger thing, I think, from my opinion, it goes back to having the consciousness go into the passenger seat, and I think that's what's happening in general is that when people are in the spell or when they basically accept the spell, right, and so then their behaviors. I mean, I think there's. I call it like the mischief gang, right? I don't want to go into calling these people the Jesuits or any of these terms that a lot of people don't understand, but I believe there is a mischief gang, right, that is
Yeah,
creating all this
chaos.
havoc in as many different ways as possible, right, in all different avenues and all over this place. And so once the spells have been taken into the people's consciousness, right, and then the traumas happen, then those people are now put into the passenger seat and they're being
Yeah.
driven around, right,
So
unconsciously
they've
on
got to the
some
point
level,
where they
and
can't
so
drive themselves anymore.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. And the this mischief gang, this unseen mischief gang, where are they? Where do they live? We don't know, but
Yeah,
they're there because you could see their work.
sure. What I would say with that, with this matrix and with this mischief gang getting into everyone nearly with their crazy spells, for those that are aligned and have broken out, you're probably more powerful than what you think. I mean, you walk into a shopping mall or a street or a cafe or a restaurant, your vibrations really like zzz, because you're living in such a different universe. I mean, you look at the people, yeah, they got a head, two arms, two legs, everyone looks kind of the same. But do realize that your vibration is vibrating very differently to these people. And
Right.
just play with that because I'm not going to give you any examples. I just want people to be aware of that. Because when you're vibrating at a very different vibration to the crowd, who are running at a lower vibration, let's say, we can say that if they're on the fluoride and the toxic food and the TV, this can give you an edge. I'm not talking about power or manipulation or self gain. It gives you an edge. And I want the listeners just to take that however they want and to play with that however they want.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really good point. And I would like to add just a little bit to that. And that is that when you start to see it, be a witnesser as you're just witnessing it and don't engage. And on top of that, don't judge it. Because our minds are very powerful. Your thoughts are being projected. So when you're just witnessing something and you're noticing this separation happening, look at it for what it is. And the idea of moving into negativity, right? It's difficult for anyone in this place because you see it as like, are you kidding me sometimes, right? I mean, I've had so many moments I'm like, is this really what's happening? Is this really what I'm seeing? And it's like, "Rah," and you can get caught into it. It's like, no, 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 no. Just be in your own being, and keep with that vibration and just witness, right? You don't have to engage, just witness as if you're watching a movie or,
Yeah, nice. I got a little
so
list here. It was something I saw online earlier. I thought it'd be good for tonight. It's a little meme. It says, How to Become a Zombie. And I'm just going to give off a little list, and we can all realize we all know people that actually do all of these. So the list is like this: listen to mainstream news, don't read, never question anything, eat GMOs and fast food, follow vaccination schedules, avoid nature, defend government corruption, drink fluoridated water, consume more than you need, support corrupt companies, don't exercise, buy things you don't need, watch TV and celebrity news. And we all know people that are like this. And this is
right.
insanity. It's almost like we just need to
Yeah.
stop everything, stop driving, just stop, because it's got to a point where it's got just too crazy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things about um, the idea of these things actually being bad for you, the way that they're presented um, has some kind of honor to them, right? In the way that they're presenting them. And I'll just give you an
Yep.
example, like the idea of vaccinations, right? So the word vaccine, has a whole story and dialogue that goes along with it, right? And so people that do these things, these get these vaccinations, they say, "Oh, it's an honorable thing. This is what we have to do in our society," right? And but the truth is, right? You're taking, mercury and heavy metals and dead viruses and you're injecting them into your body. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what it is. Now, would is that honorable? Are those words honorable? No, but that's the
Yeah.
truth.
It's unbelievable. It's really strange. I
Yeah,
mean, we'll
absolutely.
get onto some sort of reset talk a bit later, but we've all got
Yeah.
relatives and friends or old friends, in deep matrix. And we've talked about this a few times. I've been talking to this with a friend recently. And there's going to come a time where we're all going to have to just let them go. And it's okay. And we're going to have to be really strong. And we're going to have to start getting internally strong, like going to the gym. Because there's going to come a time where a lot of people you love or known for many years, I don't even know what I mean by this, they're just not going to make it. And you've got to make peace
Yeah.
with that. And you've got to get rid of the sorrow. Because they're not going to make it. And you can sit there all day talking about flat Earth and showing them flat Earth videos and all the rest. It's too fucking late, and you just got to make peace with it. Because there's a lot of evolved people who are going to freak out because some of their friends and relatives aren't going to make it, and they need to make
Right. And
integrate that.
if there are those that are in that space where they're saying to themselves, maybe I am in this spell, right? Maybe I am, inside of something that I don't realize, and I want to look into it, right? And that's the biggest thing, looking into it and doing the work to pull yourself out, right? And so, in my quick opinion on that is, if you do want to prepare and move forward, and you absolutely have to start removing the spells from your consciousness. That's the
Yep.
number one thing, because you cannot move in the way that you're meant to and designed to move if you are surrounded and filled with
Yep. Or you're
spells,
spending all your
period.
weekends with relatives stroke friends who are all covered in these spells. You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to step
Right,
into alignment. You might know the earth is flat, but if you're hanging out with these people deep in the matrix, your vibration's not going to start flying. And you're not going to get into your alignment where you're going to be where you need to be and meet the right people you're meant to meet.
right. Absolutely. It's autopilot on some level. It's automatic, the way that your body starts to integrate truth once the spells are removed. I'm telling you, it's just mind blowing. So there's hope for anyone who is on that end where they're still, like, kind of deciding for themselves, do I want to live in this
Yeah.
spell, or do
I
I
mean,
want to get myself
these
out,
people
right?
deep in the matrix, they could put on BBC and Fox News tonight. Oh, by the way, you all live in a divine magical realm, and it would just be like, oh, you seen the news tonight, Janet? It says we live in a divine magical realm, and the sky's a huge consciousness fractal clockwork giving us energy. Oh, that's nice, Jeffrey. What's for dinner tonight? It won't go in. It's just not going to go in. You know, it's no point.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I'm actually finding it, and this really doesn't come from an elitist point of view because no one's better or worse than anyone. But I'm finding it harder and harder to do small talk with these people because I'm just finding it draining and kind of pointless.
Mhm. Yeah, like I said before, I think the way that I go through that is I just witness, right? I just sit there and witness it. And, I think this whole thing, this whole divine clockwork realm that we're in, it spans lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes
Yep,
before us, right? And it
yep,
continues, you know, for lifetimes ahead of us. And we're just a part of the story, right? We're a part of the story. Our experience is part of the story, and everybody's individual stories are very important and very necessary for the collective story, and the ones that created this realm that we're in, that's also a massive story. And I guarantee this isn't the only
sure, sure,
realm like
sure.
this, right? I'm sure there's an
Yeah,
infinite
yeah,
number of realms like this. And so, it's on some level, there's something to really, on a big level, really, there's something to be excited about, and what our experience is and what we're learning and what we're processing, because all of this is really, you know, um, just a mind-blowing experience
yeah.
life, right? And experiencing all of this
Oh,
is
it's
just,
amazing
I-
time to be here. It's going to be
amazing.
pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw Smith today, and I was wondering what your views are on this. I mean, 10 years ago, it was like gay people, this is nice, accept them. Then it's like, oh, trannies, transsexuals, super nice, accept them, love them. And now I've started to see some articles like, oh, pedophiles, they're okay, they just did, that's what they're into, start to accept them. And this week, I can put it up on the screen at the moment. They're starting to say now this is official universities and routers. I'll start to accept humans that identify as vampires. I mean, where's this going to end? I mean, this is just an abomination of craziness, is it not?
Yeah. So I guess this is my opinion on this. This is the way that and I'm sorry if this is a little like esoteric in the way that I see it, but um, you know, in the beginning there was a creator, a prime source of creation, right? And every time the prime source of creation decided to incarnate, it learned the lessons that it wanted to learn, and then passed from being human, and then went back to prime source of creation. And then so over time there has been this desire from those what do you say, incarnations, to not want to go back, right? To not want to go back, but to stay in this realm and continue to experience all of these, I don't want to use the word earth, but all of these desires and stuff. And so it turned over time, it's turned into illnesses,
Yeah.
because it's not connected with source, right? It's not connected with prime source of creation. And so the illnesses continually adapt their illnesses and become more ill and more, it's just
Sure, they
totally out
had
of hand.
in
And
Brighton in England recently a gay pride event. It's massive, biggest gay pride event in England. And the carnival, the street carnival, where they say, "Come on, families, bring your kids." There are people walking down the road like in like bondage, crazy, reenacting torturous sex, like deviant, satanic, dark, repressed, strange, ill sexual stuff in the street, and everyone's waving flags saying this is something to be proud of. This for me is really, really kind of crazy.
I mean, it's mind-blowing because my mind doesn't really register what it is, right? It doesn't register like what
I
am I
know.
seeing? I just know that it's ill. I call it
Yeah,
a sickness, right? And so I saw these drag queens reading
yeah,
to kids in I'm sure people have seen this on online and just like what am I watching? And then I'm also watching the parents sitting by just kind of smiling and watching their kids like rolling around on the floor with these drag
yeah,
queens in library reading sessions. I mean, you talk about trauma, trauma. If I had that trauma when I was a kid, I would just be messed up. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know.
yeah. It's
I'm a big advocate, for helping kids and getting them through this without trauma. It's a massive illness, and I've seen so many problems arise from childhood trauma off the charts, right? And I don't know, I don't really know sometimes what to do, but all I can do is do
yeah.
my best to
Just do your
protect,
best.
right? It's just protection, protection,
Yeah,
protection, right?
yeah. I can't even see my children because of the work I've done online. So I'm seen as the crazy guy who should be kept away from the children. So it can even go that
Yeah,
way.
I mean, the illness has really integrated itself into everything, this whole government system, the whole court system, the whole police system. The illness has integrated itself into
Yep,
everything. And so, I think going back to, well, how do we get through it? Like, like, what do we use? And I'll tell you right now what it is. It's the truth. You
yep, like a
use the
sword.
truth, period. Absolutely.
Too right. It gives you power, it gives you energy, it gives you an edge. You just wave it like a sword, an etheric, esoteric sword, and you use it. You don't even have to say anything. You just vibrate it. And I was like, I don't know if
Absolutely.
some people heard my recent comedolosophy. I got stopped by the police. They had machine guns. I had no papers. I was, everyone else would have been, I was about to get arrested. Boom, broadcast who you are, and boom. And they just all go all funny. All the humans just go all
Yeah.
funny because they're following programs.
Yeah.
And you can
Right.
you can push your power,
Absolutely. It's funny going back to the mall story, when I went into the mall, I had this idea, right, of getting something, right? And as I'm going through there, I can smell the smells and I could see,
Yeah,
the brainwashing. And so I'm with my son and I just start explaining to him with my voice. I say, look at where we are. It's a massive ant trap and everyone is stuck and being pulled in. And I'm speaking these words. They're coming out of my mouth into the world. And you could start to see people like slightly turning their ears towards
yeah,
my voice, and it's like and so the voice of truth starts going in, and then you start to see like a little bit of a gravitational
sure.
pull. Well, what is that
You become a
truth, right? And
beacon. You
we
become
had
an
to get to
etheric beacon.
absolutely a beacon. And so obviously we got into the middle of this small scenario, and I just had to turn around because you could start to feel it everywhere. And but the point is that that truth has power, right? That truth has a
Yeah.
lot of power.
I wanna. I mean, we could talk about the Matrix and automatons, non-player characters for hours, but I think we've had a good go at it, and we've got some people thinking. I want to move on to chemtrails. Now, we're sort of aligned with this. We believe
Mm-hmm.
that they're blocking. the sky clockwork. They're blocking divine energy from above. And we
Absolutely.
also believe that a lot of these sort of new age websites, chemtrails, oh, they're hurting the soil, they're stopping organic food, oh, they're metals to hurt us. We believe this is all a load of disinformation. I mean, yeah, they might have metals in them. Yeah, it might hurt you a little bit. But basically, we think they're stopping proper divine energy coming down. Like the clockwork has torsion, and we'll come on to the sky clock later. But the chemtrails are simply for one thing: they're to block us from energies above.
100%. 100%. And so this is an interesting thing. It's like we're kind of in this game, right? Between the mischief gang and the source of creation. And basically the way that the rules were set up where the people or the humans or whatever you want to call us in the middle playing field get free will. Like we get that. We get to choose, right? And so there's ideas of the of vaccinations. Well, I don't even want to use that term, but inserting the dead viruses into the skin, and you get to choose that. Now, there's controversy about the choice, right, lately, and all this stuff, but for the most part, you get to choose, right? And we're still living in the free will zone. But what's happening is the mischief gang is creating something that is taking away our choice,
Yeah,
right, by flying these huge machines over us and spraying these things, and we can't do anything about that. We can't get up there, right, and
yeah,
take them down, right? So it's they're not playing by the
sure.
rules
And
anymore. You know what I mean? And
the
that's a
sad thing is, a
huge
lot of
deal.
people who are woke, quote unquote, are paying tax to pay for it, yet they're going on Facebook truth groups, writing in the evening, which does nothing. I mean, you're like me, we don't pay tax. We do everything we can not to pay tax because this hurts them. This is like living in integrity. You can't claim to be awake and a truth seeker if you're paying loads of tax. It just doesn't work.
Well, it's a spell as
Yeah,
well, right? It's just a belief spell. It's just a spell, and how it works, it's crazy. Like I remember taking a long time ago statistics in college, and it is insane. Like, what is this stuff? It's just a bunch of like gobbledygook, but it's a spell. It's
sure.
integrated. All these spells are different, right? And the tax thing is an absolute spell, but the truth behind the tax thing is it actually is a
Yeah,
free will scenario. You can you hear interviews from
it's not real.
ex-IRS employees
It's
talk
not real.
about it.
It's a spell.
It's not real. It's
Yeah.
absolutely a
I
total
mean,
spell.
recently where I was, there was 2 weeks of chemtrails. Like I'm talking like 11 a.m., a lot of chemtrails, all afternoon, weird low cloud, well not cloud, like chem cloud. And then this was going on for 2 weeks. Then there was a complete clearness. It was clear for like 36 hours. And I felt amazing. And I was getting downloads all night, and I didn't sleep all night. And my body was vibrating. I mean, this was around full moon as well. My body was vibrating really fast, and I was getting supreme clarity. It wasn't Mark's clarity. I was just like boom, like in the collective. I just
Yep.
fell into the collective, and I could see so much so clearly. So what I believe they're doing, they're stopping meditative downloads. Now, most people won't be getting meditative downloads anyway because they're either riddled with toxins or they haven't really meditated before, and that's okay. But it isn't really that hard. Just a week or two's practice, people are going to be getting these downloads, and they really don't want this. This is something they really really don't want, especially because we'll come on to later. The sky clock is ramping up. I mean, we could use the words torsion, and there's probably more data, more energy coming down now and in the coming few years. And they just really want to block this off, yeah, so their little control trip can go into overdrive.
I mean I believe we're being grown into something divine. I believe that's what's happening. It's a divine creation that has a divine purpose and a divine order. And so, this massive sky clock above us, right? All the luminaries and the way that they move to create the most amazing mandala
Yeah,
that anyone can ever even imagine. It's all constructed in a way, so years ago I used to grow plants, right? And I used to try and grow them indoors, right? With timers and all this stuff. And so there's different phases of plants that you need to accommodate, and so how to grow them. And this sky clock that we're in, it's like that times a million, right? And so there's the I believe that we're a part of this
sure,
this huge human, evolution into divinity
sure.
sort of thing. I don't really know if we have the
Well,
words to explain it, but it's
yeah, I mean,
along
as
those
a
lines.
professional astrologer, from the breaking out of the ball model, I can guarantee everyone that the sky clock works within and upon us. You can ask any of my clients, I'm getting some amazing responses. This doesn't mean I'm good, it just means I did the years of learning about how to read the energies of the sky like the ancients did. And for me, the sky
Right,
is a high consciousness divine wonder clock that has cycles within cycles. And in my
right.
Luminaries documentary, was it Luminaries Mysterium documentary, I presented all these geometric patterns that each of the luminaries did. I mean, this is like a beautiful, divine, high consciousness clockwork, and we're just cut off from it. They're just cutting us off. Even our houses have like,
Right.
uh, if we should have houses with glass or something clear so we can see that stuff. So people spend 300,
Yep.
$400,000 on a house, and they're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have like this roof thing, so I can't see anything.
I think though another thing though that I'm really noticing every day that I wake into this realm is that it's a new day, right? And so we look at the idea of the chemtrails as and also as it's breaking free
Yeah,
will, and as it shouldn't be allowed to cut us off from this divine structure that we're in. And then like you and I both experienced this last week, no chemtrails in the sky. Right. And so something's happening in this game. It's, maybe it's a push and a pull, but the chemtrails aren't here right now where I'm at. And the sky clock is just
yeah,
pouring down
sure,
into this realm, you know, and so you could feel it. And so, you know, um, you know, I'm I think every little bit of every little thing that every person does in this place, including this call that we're having right now at this time, has a major effect in this entire game. And it's all
sure.
part of the
That's why
game as
the
well,
elite
right?
or these mischief gang are making everything so pathetic. Like people will talk all day about nothing. That's why they're distracting people with
Right,
nonsense. Go to the mall, watch TV,
right.
talk about celebrity, talk about nonsense. I mean, there are people who will spend a whole month in the nonsense vibration. And if you say anything wisdom or real to
It's
them, they get shattered. They look at you and they like it's like they're shaking.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting because a majority of the time, I mean, think about it. Every hour and a half or 2 hours, however long movies are that you spend, right, watching this movie or watching this show, right? Or Hollywood's massive part of this whole game, but every hour, hour and a half, or however long the movie is that you spend, that's an hour and a half to 2 hours that you're not using your own
Yeah,
creation, right? You're not creating in your mind, you're not perceiving, you're not putting things together. It's like almost as if your
yeah.
life is put
That's
on
yeah.
pause. And then
That's why they have so
you
many
know,
series coming out, all these glossy series with good looking guys,
absolutely.
good looking girls, very glossy, because people are in passive mode. They're just getting input. So no one's thinking or doing creativity or any output. It's all about mass entertainment. So people are passive, non-stop soccer, non-stop sport,
Absolutely.
non-stop entertainment. Oh
Yep.
my God, you see online. Oh, have you seen this series? Have you seen that series? People get home from work, they watch a
Yeah.
toxic series, and then they have sex, which is really de-stressing onto each other.
Right. And it's a spell within itself. And I've been in scenarios where, I, might meet new people, and then so the first thing that comes out of their mouth is like, "Oh, have you seen this show, or have you seen that the sporting event, against these two teams?" And it's just like, "No, I haven't." And they look at me like a deer
Like you've
in
missed out.
headlights, like,
Where were you?
uh well, not only that, but I don't know how to interact with you
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even with
So,
someone got in touch with me this week and said, Mark, there's a message online. What makes the sky move? And my answer was a divine fractal geometric wonderland makes it move. And they're like, okay. Okay, they're sort of these sort of flat Earth hobby types that are looking for like a scientific answer from the same language that gave us the naughty, mischievous spells.
That's, and so there's something about the idea of being okay with not knowing, but being connected to that divine
Yeah,
source
yeah,
that
like I
does
said
know.
in the documentary, like revel in the mystery, with the sky, revel in the mystery. I mean, the sky gives us energy. Every star and luminary gets into a unique combination all the time that gives us different energy and affects us. That's pretty much all we know.
Yeah.
And you said something really good
Yeah.
the other day. You said, does the sky clockwork dominate the mind? And I would say, yes, if one is low awareness, living like in robot mode, the sky will move them about. It'll make them a little bit aggressive. It'll make them a little bit passive. It'll make them a little bit emotional. And there's an old Tibetan saying, which in English means, I forget the Tibetan, it means defeat the zodiac, find the treasure, which means transmutate above and within your natal chart. So then you get to the treasure of the source. You rise above the zodiac, you kill your zodiac, you balance it out. So you have all the archetypes within you perfectly balanced. But no one talks about this stuff. For me, it's really important stuff. I'm like,
Well, yeah, I mean, everything I think that is here to distract us pulls us out of ourselves, right? It puts our focus point on something outside. Look at all the major religions, right? Everything that we're talking about with Hollywood and sports and anything, it's pulling our consciousness and where we believe power is outside of ourselves. But the truth is actually the opposite, right? The doorway to the divine realm is
yeah,
within us, right? And so really thinking about that and saying, okay, well, why don't we just cut everything off that is a distraction? Number one, you will start to gravitate towards the actual doorway, which
sure.
is in yourself. And boom, it's like, I'm telling you, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
path. It's
Someone,
actually really
a
simple.
really good mystic once told me over 10 years ago, he said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, inside is the treasure because when you pass, all is inside. Basically, everything that's on the
Yeah,
outside, this just gets turned off when the word die. I don't really use the word die, but let's use it for the audience. When you die, all that happens is everything outside gets turned off. Everything inside, all your feelings, thoughts, emotions, that's all going to stay. And
yeah,
people are working on their
absolutely.
muscles, they're working on their car, they're getting a better car. This is all outside nonsense. Yeah, it's nice to have some nice things, but it's not that important.
Well, the other thing is that it's at some point people will at least, at the very, very least, have the thought that maybe this path, right, of the new nice car, the new house, the new job, maybe, just maybe it's a dead end. And the truth is it actually is a dead end, right? So I think that there's something to be said about that as well, and it's sort of like well, there really, when it comes down to it, there is no choice. Inevitably, we are all from source of creation, right? And so inevitably, we will go back to
Yeah.
that source, right? And so even the mischief gang out there that may be listening, listen, just surrender,
I
just
think
give up,
I
just
think they
surrender
are
and let
listening
go.
because I told you the other day this place I'm in, when I first got it, the internet was on all the time. Then it went out once a day, then twice a day. Now my internet's cutting out like every 2 hours or so. It feels like someone's winking at
Yeah.
me. And there's also an hour of the day where the lights all flash in here. And I don't feel any fear from
Mm.
this. I just feel like someone's winking at me. It's like, yeah, whatever. But going back to astrology, which is a way of looking at energy in the sky clock. I mean, some people say to me, "Oh, you believe
Mhm.
in astrology?" And I'm like, I don't believe in it. I know it. And I say to them, "Well, you feel energy from the sun?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, it's hot." I'm like, "You feel energy from the moon?" They're like, "Yeah, yeah, it gives me this sort of like yeah, it's kind of like gives some light at night." I'm like, "Okay, so you feel energy from the sky?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "So basically, you're saying because the luminary is smaller, you disagree that it has energy?" And they just realize how absurd these people are. Yeah,
There might be people that are, on the other side, or maybe just, really listening to this, like, maybe I do want to kind of look at this as being a spell. We really have to say to ourselves, well, I can see up there above me that there are these lights, right? That are, I don't know exactly what they are, and I could use some sort of technology to kind of point it up there and look at it, and so when you really start to look into it, though, you can start to see this huge gap that has been painted, right, by the corporations like NASA to go from what we witness, right, with our eyes and whatever technology that we have accessible to us to look at these luminaries in the sky, right? There's a huge gap that has been painted that takes the conscious mind from what we're witnessing to this huge grand story of the
Yeah, yeah,
universe and the
yeah.
cosmos, right? And it's been painted there. It's like okay, well, how did you get from there to way over there? Oh, I
Yep,
get it.
CGI and myths,
Photoshop.
fairy tales and CGI. Sure.
You know what I mean? And so, the idea of what's up there,
Yeah.
it's there. Do I know exactly what it
No.
is? No,
Yeah,
and that's okay.
revel in the mystery. But we can
In the
still
mystery, absolutely.
interact with the sky without having labels for it, without
Yeah,
because we got so
absolutely.
mind controlled at these school places where especially the male mind esoterically needs to know everything. Oh, I come from space and there was a big bang and there was a monkey. Like men actually believe the male mind esoterically that it knows everything. And this is massively ill. This is an illness. It should be quarantined and healed. Like if you say to any human, "Oh
Right.
yeah, we don't know that. We're just going to revel in the wonder," people will look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's this idea of science, right? Science as being this like unseen, the equations and the studies that have been done behind closed doors and all this stuff, right? And people are really that believe that. I mean, I've spoken with science professors in the past, and when I start to talk about something that is outside of science, quote unquote science, it's like, oh, well, you're pulling the rock from under my feet, and I can't live that way, right? And so the idea of this whole science thing, I think um people have to just say to themselves, listen, okay, I'm going to use my own intellect right now and my own cognitive thinking to listen to what you're saying and add that to what I have actually experienced myself, right? And put that together and decide what I believe, right? Because a lot of people, they're just like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
science says
yeah,
it,
yeah.
it's
They're
true.
experts.
It's like, okay, well,
Yeah, like
come on.
yeah.
And if you don't believe it, all of a sudden now you're in this whole shaming war.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
you don't
Like
believe in
the
science.
experts, like today in the news, they said, "Oh, it's okay. Officials went in, and that Epstein guy, he did commit suicide. The officials have clarified."
Yeah, yeah,
You see
yeah,
that?
yeah. The officials, right? And then so people can go on with their day. Oh, I
Oh, it's
get it. Yeah,
okay. It's not a
that's cool. What's
conspiracy, but
next?
the officials clarified it.
Yeah.
I wanna move on now, David, to the reset. Let's call it the
Sure.
reset. Now, this is sort of out of order, in the wrong order for me because I've got a video I want to make soon. Um, I've had a 10-year jigsaw internal jigsaw, and I've said to a lot of people close to me who will know. I've always said there's going to be changes between 2021 and 2025. I don't know exactly what. I mean, I do know the economy is pretty broken. Bond markets are negative. If you lend the government $100, you get 90 back. Also in Denmark, they had the first negative rate mortgage. They pay you, 0.2% to have a mortgage. The quantitative easing is going out of control. I mean, I look at this stuff quite a lot, and the economy is broken. Worse than 2008. They're just hiding it. And what they're going to do, they're going to blame it on Brexit and a Chinese trade war, when in reality, it's the central banking model, and that fiat currencies have an average lifespan of 27 years. It's designed to implode. So the economy is one thing. Also, I've been given some information from some lodge, and I've been looking into this deeply about what's known as the Grand Conjunction. The next one's the big one's December 21st, 2020. I'm going to do a video alone about this because I've got a lot of really good info about this. But this looks like the age of Aquarius actually starts on December the 21st, 2020. The Great Conjunction is in Aquarius. It's the first time it's in air. Every 200 years it changes element, and it's coming into air, into Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, and esoterically Saturn likes to reap and cut away nonsense. Now I'm not going to go too much into this stuff at the moment because I'm going to do a whole video about it. But have a little chat a little bit about this reset, and we've both come to the same sort of dates.
Right. And it's interesting though, because I think myself, there's some unknown thing. And, maybe we're in a realm right now that is different than a realm that I may have been in the past.
Yeah,
And I'll just
yeah,
briefly talk about this and then you can kind of pick up on this. But I remember the whole idea of the
2012. Yeah,
2012 December 21st thing, right? And the elements at that time to me felt a lot different, right? And so the elements of, who's involved, what's happening, this whole idea of, well, space was around then in that whole story, right? This whole Palladian thing and the reptilian thing and the Mayan calendar thing. It was a whole dialogue and a story. And so it was interesting because when you look at it from this place that we're in, now, I'll go back and just say, there's an element that I haven't really put together that links that time
yeah.
place with this time place. But there is a difference happening. There's a different realm here than what I
Pre
can remember. And
2012.
so in this,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah. And so in this realm that we're in, the elements are totally different, right? And what we're dealing with, the players and the gameplay and even the sky clock, it's different.
yeah.
You can feel it, you can see it, right? And so these elements are kind of leading up to this um, this
Yeah.
leap that's about to happen,
It's
this next leap,
it's
right?
highly
And
possible something did happen 2012, but it was in the unseen, stroke invisible.
right. That to me, because there are some things that are unknown, and I do have memories that kind of show me some things that could be, used as a platform for truth. I don't know a lot about the relationship between pre-2012 and now, but one thing I do know is that there is a
I
difference,
agree.
and but re, so the bigger point is that pre-2012 realm place, it's gone. It's over. Right? It doesn't exist in this realm that we're in. So in this realm that we're in, aligning to and seeing and noticing and becoming a part of and witnessing and experiencing this divine clock, I think is really what needs to happen, not only for myself but anyone else that you know
Yeah.
can feel and hear the
I
alignment in
find
what we're
time is
saying.
much faster the past few years, probably since 2012. I find,
Mhm.
it's getting dark and I'm like, wow, where's today gone? And, I've done a lot in the day, but I just feel that it's gone very quick. Now, I can't rule out, I've been speaking to various people about this recently, this sort of 2021 to 2025 period. Due to some people I've been speaking to, and yourself, I can't rule out some sort of purge or some sort of cleansing or even some sort of upgrade. These are things I can't rule out. For me, they're on the table. All these three things are on the table: a purge, a cleansing, or an upgrade.
Pre 2012, just to bring it up one last time, I feel like the happenings in that game were really like overpowering so much in a way that it was lost on some level, meaning the game was lost, right? And but in this field, this place, this that we're in, it just feels like there's so much more power involved in the integrating of this shift, right? And so I'll just call it a shift, because I don't really know what it means. And but the idea of upgrade and purging, I think, are
Synonymous. Yeah, yeah,
in sync with each other. Yeah, synonymous, right? And so they're both part of the
yeah.
same thing, right? And this kind of wiping away of the dead end, and because there's a lot of experiences, right? Human experiences that are coming close to that dead end. Where really you can't go any farther
Sure.
down that path,
It's
right?
a
And
dead
so
end.
these dead ends,
Yeah, it needs. It's
dead
like
end, and
torsion
so
needs
they
to
have.
pulse. It's like the reality is going to pulse or implode. I don't really have the right words. It's more silky than those words, like a very soft and elegant
Right,
twist, like a pulse. I don't have the words, David, but I think you know what I mean.
right, yeah,
I don't know if
absolutely.
the listeners or yourself have seen my Dark Rift or geology videos. So my geology documentary, I believe, proves there was a reset around 3500 BC where only, a million or two survived. My Dark Rift documentary is speculative and it grabs together loads of myths all from all around the world that all pretty much say the same thing, where these myths say the sky changes. So in different ways, they'll say the stars fall or a new sun pops out or the moon falls and there's a new moon. The Dark Rift documentary presents all these myths that say it's like a new sky clock or a changed sky clock for a new cycle.
I sent you the lyrics. What was that? To David Bowie's song, "The
Yeah.
Mamas and Papas," right? And if anyone listening, is into David Bowie, but just look at those lyrics, right? And so there's something about the this idea of, I mean, what do they call it? The galactic center, right? They call this whole Milky Way thing that, that you're looking
Yes.
at the
Dark
galactic center.
Rift.
Now you
Yep.
know more about the Dark Rift, right? You know more about this than me, and I remember you were saying something about it. It looks and it has the behavior as if it was ripped open on at
Yeah.
some point, right? And so, I ask myself, well, looking at where I believe we're inside of a terrarium, right? And I can definitely see a lot of evidences of that, and so what's beyond this sort of boundary or bubble that we're in, it looks to be water everywhere, right? And so the rift, it's kind of like, well, what is that? I mean, we can speculate about what it is because I think there's really no way to gather words or evidences to kind of tell us, right, as you said before, scientifically
Yep.
what that is. But there is definitely something there, and it's not the mainstream
Sure.
narrative, obviously, right? And it's
Yeah.
I don't think it's
No.
anything to be
No.
afraid of, though. I think that's the big thing because people can easily get into this idea, oh, well, the sky is going to open, right? And so monsters are going to come through, or water, might fill, this whole place might fill with water, because I've thought those things as well. But I think that I mean, why would all this lead up to that?
Sure.
I
Sure.
mean, come
Sure.
on, that's kind of a
It's going to be
boring end of the
something we
story, right?
can't even contemplate or imagine in our imaginations at the moment. It might be something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say we talked about clues. What are the clues for this sort of reset or shift? I would say a good clue is a film called The Dark Crystal. We were speaking about this the other day. I was speaking about this. This was given to
Yeah.
me recently by someone very advanced. I don't really know this person. They're just like, Mark, your work's pretty good. It's pretty on target. Watch this film.
The Great Conjunction is the end of the world! Or the beginning? And begin, all the same. Big change. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Ah, there it is.
And The Dark Crystal, I would also say if you see big economy wobbles in Argentina or Germany, or you see an earth event like an earthquake or volcano in New Zealand, or you see massive upscale of riots like we're seeing in Hong Kong and Moscow, or more of these water shortages like in Chennai in India, the whole city has no water, has to be ferried in. When this starts ramping up, these are very big clues that you need to get ready. And I'm not talking about grab some beans and run up the hill. I'm talking about internally ready, where you surrender and you work on your intuition, you work on your inner peace, and you allow your higher self or the sky clock or the universe, whatever words you want to use, you allow it to guide you to the right place and the right people. You've got to be working on this inner self stuff. It's so important. It's more important than having sacks and sacks of food. It really is.
Right, right. I mean, how fun would it be if we weren't a slave to the food thing, right? Because you think about it, it's one of the big propulsions of
Sure.
being in the slave system. It's like, oh, we have to work, to get
Yep.
the money to, survive, and so, I guess if I was to be able to vote for what this upgrade would be, superhero status on some level, right? Where we don't need these things that are, because they know the
Yep.
mischief gang knows, right? They know
And they
what we
give us
believe we
foods
need,
where we need more
and
food,
so
like sugar makes you hungry.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And so, what is the upgrade? Well, I think that when I'm noticing myself being activated, mostly because it's, getting rid of the spells, you could see that I can feel and see that I am less convinced that I
Sure,
need
sure.
anything
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
Every day I'm less
I did a fast
convinced of that.
yesterday. Just did a day on liquids. Felt great. Felt really flexible. Felt high energy. The more you bring something like this into your life, the easier it gets. Going back to the reset, I think a lot of these sort of truth community people, the questions of where are we and why are they lying are going to soon turn into what is going on and what am I going to do?
Yeah, and it's a good because I deal with this as well, right? I
Sure.
think we're both kind of looking at it like, well, how do we prepare? What is
Yeah.
our insurance and all this stuff? And I mean, to me, it's really simple. I mentioned it before from my perspective, right? And so, I'm getting rid of everything in my life that does not serve
Yeah.
the truth, right? I'm getting rid of it all, and including any
Yeah.
spell that I
Even
can
people and
see, right? And a
objects.
majority of those
Yeah.
everything, right? And so spells are integrated in people and they're choosing to hold those within their conscious experience, fine. But I am not, right? And so it's, I might not have any
Sure.
friends, anyone around me, but I know that I'm completely, integrated
Yeah.
into this thing that we're in, this thing. It's like, divine
Yeah. I would
activation
say to people to
thing.
be excited. I mean, it's like we're all now we're all lead roles in a movie. This is what's going to happen over the coming years. It's going to be like a very exciting time. But if you're not smart, you could get caught up in a whole load of chaos. And that's not my role in this, I can assure you. I don't think it's yours either, David.
Right. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I think there's just so many, different things we could talk about as far as, and because there's different people at different stages is the big thing, right? And I'll get questions a lot from people that are like, I'm just recently, thinking maybe this whole globe thing is a lie, and that's at one
Yeah,
part of the story, right? They're
yeah,
at one specific phase, and then, I meet people like yourself who are, we're looking at these online sort of flat earth globe earth arguments and so and sort of like, well, you guys, it's
yeah,
beyond that on some level, but everybody's a part of this journey, right? Everyone's a part of this journey, and assisting each other is, I think, really not only beneficial but
totally.
fun,
Yeah, we
right?
need the people on. We need to be collaborating. It's really important. Like I've lived up mountains for
Collaborating.
years. I've done it on my own once, and it was great. I love that time. But one thing I did learn from that is, in the future, in a chaos scenario, in a change of system scenario, in a shift, it is wise to have people of a like mind and a similar vibration around you. This is really important.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, my own child is up to
Yeah,
speed, right? He knows what's happening, and so we walk around together looking at this place, and he doesn't have to
sure.
go through the brainwashing system. He's activated, right? And so it's very, very powerful to know that I have assisted and protected, a new being to come in, right? There's no vaccinations, no doctor
Yeah,
birth, no medicine. He'd never been sick once, right? And it's proof in the pudding right there, right? And so, I would reach out to anyone that has kids in general. Anyone that has kids, it's time to protect them. It's
yeah,
time to wake up for one, and then protect, right? And so it's sort of our job
totally.
to sort of do that, right? And my
They
parents
didn't
didn't
know,
know.
but
They
now
just simply
what
didn't
I don't
know.
understand is all these people online. They know, but they still send their kids to schools, and I'm just like, this is crazy because you consciously know. And then they're like, oh, but I'll get a fine. But don't pay the fine. It's like,
Well, it's the same reason why people don't. They're like, oh, I got to pay my tax. It's just like, oh, I'm waking up and I know this is, the government's bad. That everything is just, all inside job and blah blah blah. But I'll pay my
totally.
taxes.
But these
It's
people,
like,
they
okay,
they
like,
need to realize that when they remove the spells and distractions, they're going to be ripe and ready. And that sentence can be taken on so many different levels. They've got it's not about awakening, it's about removing spells. This is another way of looking at it. And this is a really
right.
powerful way of looking at it. Because there are people who are like, they know stuff, but they haven't removed the spells.
Right, and so there are people that are like posting, right? There are a lot of awoke people that are posting themselves at different pivots, right? And I just want to bring up Eric Dubay really quick because he's a very important
Yeah.
pivot in this whole shift, right? And so he is helping funnel. He's funneling the mind. He's saying, okay, so this is where your mind is, but look at the reality of it. And so the mind's able to, the spell is able to easily separate from the mind in that fashion, because a lot of people are wanting to see this sort of
Yeah. It's the
analytical
first
logic,
step. Yeah.
way. Yeah, it's definitely there, and I really like how he's staying there in that place, right? And he's really funneling people. He's staying
Yeah.
put, right? And so, there's people like myself who are looking at in this conversation, for example, we're looking at, well, what it's even though it's speculative, well, what could this all be about, right? And then so it's like we're all working together
Sure.
on some level
Sure.
to sort of funnel that
Yeah.
consciousness
Like
back to
someone
the
who's just
truth.
woken up today to 9/11, they come to my channel, they're going to freak out. I mean, and that's okay because
Right.
there are people there that are going to help them there, and no, we're all part of the
Right,
jigsaw.
right.
Now, what
Absolutely.
I would say, because I think we'll wrap up soon, we're nearly at an hour and a half. I want to say
Okay.
humans living yeah, to say it again. I think humans living in a utopia here on Earth is actually not that hard. I think we just got divinity removed and then smashed up with a lot of lies and a cocktail of toxins and spells. But once all that's removed, the utopian ideas start coming in and start to be downloaded, and then we can start planting the seeds of utopian ideas, and we can pretty much live in a utopia here. It just needs a few things to be removed. I don't think it's that hard.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's removing beliefs, right? Beliefs that just
Yeah,
aren't true.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
the dollar
my
bill
common
is not
philosophy
true.
second
It's
episode
not
is all
true.
about beliefs, where I say we shouldn't be believing in anything. Beliefs is what's messed us
Yeah.
all up. That's what got us into this whole mess. Is beliefs.
And it's turned into belief wars and perspective wars is really what it is. And it's like, get rid of this stuff and look at yourself and what do you want to create and start creating. Creating is the power, that I think is, just going to blow it all away. After you remove the spells,
Yeah,
start to create.
fantastic. Hey, David, how about we do another one in a month or so, yeah? Let's
Let's
do
do
it.
it. Yeah, this was great. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I really appreciate you and everything, all the work you're doing. Anyone that's out there listening, just know you're part of an amazing story, right? It's an amazing story and it's an amazing time to be alive. And your choices, you do
Yeah.
have those choices. You have you get to choose. Really, you get to choose what you want.
I have a lot of people contact me daily. Just want to say, more recently, a lot of people who've just got no one to talk to about this stuff. Get in touch with me. I'll try and allocate some time. We'll work something out. I'm pretty good. I've done this a lot for a lot of people. I'm good at talking to people about this stuff. I'm pretty open. If you've got no one to talk to, get in touch with me and we'll see if you can just unload, because it's very healthy. Okay, guys.
Absolutely.
See you on the next episode.
Bye bye. Thank you guys.